I have a short amount of time.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على خير المرسلين محمد النبي الأمي وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين اللهم يسر أمورنا وزين أخلاقنا وثبت أقدامنا وصلى الله على النبي الكريم اللهم لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. Alhamdulillah, brothers and sisters, by the grace and mercy of Allah Ta'ala, we continue in our short Tafsir program. And tonight I'm going to share some thoughts and some reflection or Tafsir on the roughly the 10th juz of the Holy Quran, Wa'alamu, where Allah Ta'ala begins with Wa'alamu. This juz covers, of course, a portion of Surah Al-Anfal and then also a portion of Surah At-Tawbah. And what is very important to know from the onset is that the theme of this portion of the Holy Quran has to do with events that took place during wartime for the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his companions. And it's important to preface this point with what we're going to talk about today, because there are many people who are what you would call Islamophobic, or they have an agenda against the Islamic tradition, and they will take ayat specifically from this section of the Holy Quran and try to say that, look, Muslims are by nature violent, or Muslims are extremist, or look, even in the Quran, it's filled with examples of violence and warfare. And that is a completely unfair allegation to make, because these specific ayat, right, were revealed when there was actually ongoing conflict, physical conflict. So we have to put these ayat in perspective of the whole sort of Islamic message and tradition before we can say that. That's number one. Two is that I actually wanted to share an ayah specifically in Surah Tawbah, which, I've heard somebody before say, oh, this surah is about war, as I said, because it was revealed when there was conflict going on. But I wanted to share one ayah with our brothers and sisters that are here that is a reminder for them that if they ever dialogue with somebody who is a Christian or Jew or someone of another faith, and they have this strong misunderstanding or misconception, you can say, well, look, this surah that you're talking about, the chapter of war, well, why does it say this? And the ayah, the very famous ayah, is when أحد من المشركين استجارك فأجره حتى يسمع كلام الله ثم أبلغه مأمنه ذلك بأنهم قوم لا يعلمون. This is a beautiful ayah that comes in the midst of what are some of our Islamophobic neighbors or whatever they may be using. The ayah itself means وَإِنْ أَحَدٌ مِّنَ الْمُشْرِكِينَ اسْتَجَارَكَ. That means that if any one of the mushrikeen, meaning the polytheists, the disbelievers, those who commit shirk, they come to you, right, seeking protection, ajr, that then you must give him that protection. You must give him that shelter. You must give him that sanctuary. You must give him that refuge. When أحد من المشركين استجارك فأجره حتى يسمع كلام الله, so that they can listen to the kalam of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. They can listen to the beautiful message of the Holy Quran. Right? This is in the same surah. I'm emphasizing this. This ayah is in the same chapter of, what they call the chapter of war, or the chapter of, the Muslims are, the Quran says to do this and the Quran says to do that. It says, when أحد من المشركين استجارك فأجره حتى يسمع كلام الله ثم أبلغه مأمنه. And then you should deliver them to safety. ذلك بأنهم قوم لا يعلمون. That is because these people, meaning the mushrikeen, those people who commit shirk, those people who don't believe in Allah, those people who are away from the path of Islam, the reason they're behaving this way is because there are people who don't know about Islam. So your job is to educate them. Your job is to teach them. Your job is to invite them to the book of Allah. This is a very beautiful ayah. Again, this comes in Surah At-Tawbah, which is the chapter on, which is oftentimes used by, as I said, the Islamophobes. So I encourage you to look at that ayah. That comes very early in the surah. It's around ayah number 6 in Surah Tawbah. So that's the first thing that I wanted to share. Secondly, in the end of Surah Al-Anfal and Surah Tawbah, there's also other discussions about, for example, prisoners of war. And I want to remind you that the Prophet ﷺ, look at how his sunnah was applied when it came to the concept of prisoners of war. He did things that in previous times were unheard of. How? He gave people their freedom, right? By teaching, by educating, right? In other words, they were prisoners of war. When do you see that happening now? That there's a prisoner of war, and when they teach other people knowledge, reading and writing, they're given freedom. These are things that are unheard of, but these are things that the Prophet ﷺ did, right? And these things are not brought up or mentioned, when it comes to these types of ayat and these types of surahs. So that's something to consider. And then there is a message actually even above and beyond the issue of advising the Muslims to be strong and to be brave and those kinds of things. But we have even, for example, there's a mention of a specific battle that took place during the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam called Hunain. And in this particular battle, what was very unique was that this battle took place after Fath Makkah, after the Makkah was taken, the conquest of Makkah by the Muslims. So the Muslims at that time, they were significant in number. Their number was over 10,000. And there was a few tribes on the outskirts of Makkah near the name of the place. I'm trying to remember the name of the place, but they became rebellious, and they did not want to fall under the control of the Muslims. So they opposed the Muslims, and the Muslims went out. They left Mecca, right, and they entered this valley called Hunain. Allah Ta'ala, He describes it in the Holy Quran when He says that لَقَدْ نَصَرَكُمُ اللَّهُ فِي مَوَاطِنَ كَثِيرًا, that Allah Ta'ala, He gave you victory in many circumstances, right? وَيَوْمَ حُنَيْنٍ, and even on the day of Hunain, إِذْ أَعْجَبَتْ كَثْرَتُكُمْ. This is a great reminder for us, because Allah Ta'ala says that you became so beguiled, or so infatuated with your numbers, like you thought you had this mighty army after Fath Makkah. Why? Because people came into the deen of Islam afwaja. They came into the deen of Islam like in huge numbers, right? But Islam is always about quality, not about quantity. And Allah Ta'ala, He describes that in this issue of the Battle of Hunain, Yawma Hunain, when He says, إِذْ أَعْجَبَتْ كَثْرَتُكُمْ, that your massive numbers, they're something that you became infatuated with, but you didn't think, you forgot about the success comes with Allah Ta'ala, meaning victory is in the hands of Allah. He wants sincerity. He wants truthfulness. He wants justice. Right? He's not concerned about numbers. Why? Because the Muslims, إِذْ أَعْجَبَتْ كَثْرَتُكُمْ فَلَنْ تُغْنِ عَنْكُمْ شَيْئًا. Those numbers, they helped you in no way on that day. In fact, Imam al-Ghazali, rahmatullahi alayh, I remember in one of his works, he was talking about, in fact, if you look at this ayah and other ayat of the Holy Quran, numbers, in fact, is a source of loss, not a source of victory. Because numbers makes you complacent. It makes you arrogant. It makes you feel that you're going to get victory, and you forget about Allah Ta'ala. Right? Earlier today, I had a discussion with a brother, and we were talking about business, and I told him sometimes when your business does well, this is a curse from Allah Ta'ala. Why? Why can when your business doing well be a curse? Is because you start making a lot of money and you forget about the remembrance of Allah. You forget about the dhikr of Allah. You forget being humble. You forget striving in the path of Allah. So the Sahaba, in a sense, they were like that on Yawm Hunain, the day of Hunain, because they became infatuated with their numbers. Allah has given us victory. We're powerful. We have many numbers. And then the next thing you know, they're being pummeled and basically sprayed with arrows, where they started running, they started fleeing, right? And why did this happen? This was the point that Imam al-Ghazali rahmatullahi made. He said because Muslims, they're looking at their numbers like they deserve victory. No, victory is in the hands of Allah Ta'ala. And a Muslim is always humble. He's always just, right? So this is one of the lessons again we get in what's called wartime sort of scenarios. But it's really teaching us that how does a Muslim behave when he is in power or when he's in control, right? He's still somebody who's humble. He's still somebody who seeks justice. So that's one of the lessons that we get, also from Surah Tawbah. Then Surah Tawbah also has a few other topics, and one of the most important is the discussion that comes about hoarding wealth and hoarding money. Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala, He mentions in the Quran, وَالَّذِينَ يَكْنِزُونَ الذَّهَبَ وَالْفِضَّةَ وَلَا يُنْفِقُونَهَا. He says that they are those people, or there are people who, what do? Is they hoard the silver and the gold, and they don't spend it fi sabilillah. They don't spend it in the path of Allah tabarak wa ta'ala. فَبَشِّرْهُمْ بِعَذَابٍ أَلِيمٍ. Allah ta'ala says that you give them tidings of a painful punishment. Like, give them this warning of a painful punishment. These are those people who take wealth and they hoard it, right? So this is actually telling us, again, this comes in Surah Tawbah, about the importance of charity and giving and spending in the path of Allah Ta'ala for those who are needy, those people who are destitute, right? Not being somebody who is victorious in the path of Allah. Allah Ta'ala gives you victory, the spoils of war, and what do? You become greedy and hoard it. You save it for your family, right? This is not the message of Islam at all, because Islam is always preaching justice and always preaching helping others. So Allah Ta'ala, after talking about this sin, and it's a great sin, it's considered min al-kaba'ir, the great sin of hoarding money. He says that for these people there is a painful punishment, and in fact they'll be branded in the hellfire, basically with that which they used to keep, the gold and the silver that they used to keep. In fact, they'll be punished with that. They'll be branded with the heat of that and punished with that, right? On the day of judgment. So this is a very serious crime to do, number one, and the punishment is severe. So Allah Ta'ala is encouraging the believer that no, he should spend in the path of Allah Ta'ala, even if he achieves victory, even if he achieves wealth. And then Allah Ta'ala, he starts to describe, it comes in Surah Tawbah as well, the famous ayah about innama sadaqat, that basically when you give in the path of Allah Ta'ala, you give into different categories, and pretty much those are those people that are poor, those are those people that are needy, the wayfarer, the people that are in debt, etc. So this is a beautiful ayah that reminds us that zakah, or giving in the path of Allah Ta'ala, is obligatory, right? It is the part of our fundamentals of faith. As Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu ta'ala, he reported the Prophet when he said that Bunya Islam ala khams, he said that the faith of Islam is built on 5, right? And we always emphasize salah, we always talk about salah, but many times we forget that obligatory charity is a fundamental aspect of Islam, to the point that Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu ta'ala, he said that if a person was to even keep a rope, meaning something that's as worthless as a rope, they were to keep that rope, and they used to give something like that rope during the time of the Prophet ﷺ, but now they keep it. Now they don't give it, meaning during my reign, the reign of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq as Amir al-Mu'mineen, he said that I would oppose that person, and I would go and seek justice against that person. Meaning I'm willing to oppose this person until I've given this zakah. And so as a ruler, I'm going to take it. If he's not going to give it to me, I'm going to take it. And so these are some of the ayat, again, that show the beauty of Islam, brothers and sisters, that everything that we talked about. One is that the victory comes from Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala. Two is that the balance, the purpose of Islam is not to overpower people, but to teach them the beautiful message of Islam. And then 3 is the concept of charity and giving in the path of Allah Ta'ala when he gives you success. So we'll go ahead and close here. May Allah Ta'ala guide us all and give us the ability not only to understand the Holy Quran, but then implement it again in our lives. Subhanaka hamdika wa la ilaha illa ant astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh Amir. Jazakallah khair, everybody, for attending. Inshallah, we'll see you all tomorrow. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi